Rev up your engines. Some basic things you need to know so you don't destroy your car or cause expensive repairs to be needed just because of some stupid little thing you didn't know about. Now, over the last 56 years of repairing cars, I've seen people ruin cars for some of the craziest reasons. So here's some basic stuff everybody needs to know. Now, most people still have gasoline-powered cars. The most important thing is to have full, clean oil in it. So, find where your oil dipstick is. In this case, it's right here. Pull it out and wipe it clean. And when you do, make sure you've done two things. One, park it on a flat surface so you get an even reading, and do it after the engine's been shut off at least 5 minutes so the oil drains down and you get a correct reading. Then once you've wiped the old oil off, stick it in, push it all the way down, and then check it. It's about half a quart down because it needs to be changed. It hasn't been changed in over a year. I've been a bad boy. What kind of oil should you use? It says right on the cap of most cars. This is 5W30 because it's an old car. And you want to use full synthetic oil. It works better. Change it about every 5,000 miles or once a year. I've been bad. I haven't changed this thing for like a year and a half, even though it doesn't get that much mileage on it. So it's time to change it. Now, it might sound like a no-brainer to park it on a level surface, but hey, my father ran a gas station. And one time when he was visiting me in Texas, he says, "Oh, my Toyota's out of oil. It's not even on the dipstick." So I go out. He'd measured it on a hill. So I said, let's park it on a flat surface. And of course, it was perfectly full then. So, level surface, have the engine shut off at least 5 minutes. Now, the next thing is your car's battery. There's a positive terminal and a negative. Now, I have red and green, so it's easy. But look closely. This is a negative, but it has a minus. That's negative. And you go over here. There's a little plus. That's the positive side. Don't just go by the post, because sometimes people switch the colors and you might have red on negative and green on positive. The battery will always have a plus and a minus. So when you jump start it, you do positive, positive, and negative to negative. Now, back in the old days, we used jumper cables, and you were supposed to put the positive on the positive and the negative somewhere on the frame of the car, because theoretically you could get a spark that some of the gas could cause an explosion. Extremely rare, but today most people are jump starting with these jump start boxes. You got positive and negative. You can connect them directly to the battery. These good ones don't create a spark. Nothing happens until you turn it on, and where you turn it on is right here. There's no spark. That's what turns it on. And since there's so many people these days that know nothing about cars, if you ever needed your car jump started, whew, I've had customers that are stuck somewhere in a parking lot, and some guy comes by and I'll help jump start your car. They put it on backwards. It fries the computer systems, can do thousands of dollars of damage. So I advise buying one of these jump starters and stick them in your trunk just in case. This particular one is pretty good. It's a Lexus. I never had a jump start it. It's been sitting for years in my wife's trunk. And check it out. It's still at 100% after all those years. And I'll turn it off now, so it'll stay that way. And if you notice, that jump starter is also an air compressor. It also works quite well. Not a bad idea to have a jump starter air compressor. You're low on air, you got to fill it up. You know, you go to a gas station these days, half of them don't have pumps that even work, or they charge you money for it, and they're not accurate. The particular one's a good system. I use the pump for pumping up tires. I haven't used it as a jump starter yet. I didn't have to in this, but I know they work because I've got 3 of them, and I've used them in Rhode Island. I've used them to start people's cars, and I've used them to pump up people's tires. It's a handy thing to have. Now, of course, your car is cooled by 50% antifreeze and 50% water. You can see it's full, so generally it's okay, but it's a good idea every once in a while to check your radiator cap. This one's on the engine. Do it like now. The engine's ice cold and you won't hurt yourself. And you can see it's full to the top because this doesn't use coolant. But the coolant goes bad over time. Now, this is a Lexus, a Toyota products. They use the Toyota pink coolant. That coolant can last as long as 7, 8 years, 150,000 miles. You don't have to change it very often, but who the heck's going to remember that crap? So get yourself a little notebook, stick it in your glove box. You can write down, here's when I changed the coolant, here's when I changed the oil. Keep a record of it. You might even say, here's when I changed the battery, so you'll know how old the battery is. Now, modern batteries, a lot of them don't last as long as they used to, You're lucky if you get 5 or 6 years out of them. So you got an old one, hey, you might want to change it before cold weather comes. Or conversely, if you live in Houston, Texas, you might change it before the summer because the summer strains it a lot running the AC. They will eventually wear out. You don't want to be stranded anywhere. But at least if you have one of those jump starters, you're not going to be stranded. You could jump start a dead battery and then drive to Walmart or someplace where you can get a better price on a battery than in a, in quotes, discount auto parts stores. I've seen discount auto parts stores sell batteries for 200 bucks that you could get at Walmart for 90 bucks. Why overpay? We're going to talk about brake fluid. Here's the brake fluid. You can see the brake fluid is at the top. It's a Lexus. It doesn't use brake fluid, but there's the brake fluid. It's always brake fluid. It's the only thing that goes in there. Now there's various types of brake fluid, modern cars. You got dot this, dot that. Find out, do a little research, see what dot you should use. If it says use dot 3, use dot 3. But they also make fully synthetic brake fluid, and that's mainly for race cars because the fully synthetic stuff, a lot of it, it won't work well with the anti-lock braking systems. It foams up. So see what your car uses and only use that. Do not use a different grade. And unless you're racing cars, stay away from the full synthetic. Normally, full synthetic is good. Full synthetic oil is much better than regular oil. But in brake fluid, no. You want to stick to the fluid it was made for. Do a little research for your car and only use that fluid. Now here's a warning that a lot of people don't know about. We'll go inside the car and take a look. Keep an eye on your fuel tank. This one we just filled up. But not just so you don't run out of fuel, but this is full. My advice is don't run it too much lower than maybe 1/8 of a tank. Maybe leave it at 1/4 of a tank. And here's why. Modern cars have their fuel pump inside the gas tank, and this may sound rather strange. Fuel actually lubricates the pump. The fuel goes to the pump, it lubricates the bearings as it pumps fuel into your car. But if you're one of those people, I don't know, see if I can run it on fumes, I'll run it till it's almost out of gas. If you actually run out of gas in a modern car with a fuel pump in the tank, you're screwed. Instead of sucking fuel, it will suck air. Air is dry. The bearings in the fuel pump will burn out from running dry instead of having the gasoline lubricate them. So some of these cars you might spend $500-600 bucks putting a fuel pump in. They're expensive. American cars especially, you got to drop the gas tank. That's a big labor job. You don't want to get involved in crap like that. So my advice is pretend that 1/4 of a tank is empty, and when you get down there, fill it up. Right now my wife, she's a range anxiety person. She'll fill it up when it's half a tank. She could never own an electric car, that's for sure. She'd have range anxiety up a wazoo. But if you don't drive that much, it's better to keep your gas tank full. Because if your gas tank is almost empty, what's in the gas tank? Mainly air. And you know what air does? The oxygen in air starts to degrade the gasoline in your tank, and eventually it'll turn to gunk. So let's say you're going to Paris for 6 months. You'd want to fill your car's tank up with gas before you left. So then there's hardly any air in the gas tank, and then it won't degrade the gasoline in. Modern gasoline is very complex with the mixtures that are in it, and it doesn't last as long as old gas. Back when I was a kid, you could have gas 3-4 years old, and it'd still work okay. Not modern gas. It's got a very limited lifespan, so you want to keep the tank full so there's not much air in the system if you're going to let it sit for long periods of time and don't drive it much. Now, speaking of not driving much, you want to pay attention to your tires. These are new Michelins. They're in great shape. Even if you have a whole bunch of tread on the tires, let's say your tires are old. I'm a cheapskate, right? So she had an old Cressida. It had the original tires on it, but it had 70,000 miles. They were good tires, right? And they still had tons of tread left on them. But she came half a block from the house and she abandoned her car, came and said, I got a flat tire. So I look, and lo and behold, all 4 tires were full of micro cracks. One of them had blown. When your tires get a bunch of little cracks in them, see the picture there? It's called micro cracks. You see a bunch of cracks. It's time to get new tires. Tires generally don't have that much of a lifespan these days. They tell you 5 to 7 years is about the max. Then they start cracking and they're dangerous to drive. Even though they got a lot of tread, if they're starting to rot, you don't want to drive it, especially at highway speeds. Some guys will have old tires, they drive them in the city. They don't go over 30 miles an hour, and they might last a little while. But as soon as you get at highway speeds, I was doing 65, the heat and everything is stressing the cracked tires, and it just came apart like it was made out of paper mache. So you got old tires, if they're 6, 7, 8 years old or more, and you see they're all cracked, you're gonna take any kind of a trip, buy new tires. It doesn't matter if they got a lot of tread. If they're full of cracks, they're dry rotted, the ultraviolet rays of the sun destroy them. Get new tires before you take any kind of a serious drive. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.